Okay, let me go ahead and shift to a larger, the ultimate super screen. There we go. Speaking of the exhibition, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, again, it goes till the 31st. The reception was, I was very happy with that. I'm just thrilled some people showed up. People showed up and it was a good experience and I enjoyed doing it. I got 100 pictures up. 6 of the 7 continents are covered. I counted about 55 countries are covered, including there's every genre you can imagine, still life, landscape, portraiture, natural light portraiture, that is. Even I got one underwater picture. I didn't drown. So so it's a lot of variety. Anyone who knows my work, I shoot everything, most everything. The only thing I don't shoot is porn. I'll pass on that one. But yeah, so anyway, the church hours actually are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Sunday's a good time too, so if you can't make it 22nd, see it. There are opportunities to see it outside the next meeting on September 22nd at 7:30 p.m. at the church. So anyway, hope you guys can make it. So to review the how we do the competitions, I'm sure many of you already know this, but I do repeat it every time. Please mute your mics. We don't want to hear your partner snoring or your dog barking or a burglar breaking in your house or whatever. So please, if you can, mute your mics. We start off with a silent run through. No one says anything, including the judge. And then we go back to the first image we showed in monochrome, which we'll do first. We'll do color second. And then Eric will provide his sage advice on each and every image. And then we'll go to color. And at the very end, we will announce the ribbon winners that Eric, through his wisdom and experience, picked to receive a ribbon. Okay? So let's go ahead and start with monochrome. And then we'll go back to the original image and Eric will provide his notes of wisdom on each and every image. Okay? Here we go. Silent run through. All righty, let's go back to the first one. Real quick here. Eric, it's yours. Go ahead.
There, let me unmute. That's better. Yeah, really nice photo of the aquarium here, and I like the treatment of this in monochrome or black and white. What really attracts me is the range of tonal values, both in the background and also specifically in the fish that make up the foreground. The thing that makes this hard is all the fish that are at the edges of the frame, things that are slightly clipped or significantly clipped. And that's really the trick with this stuff, is trying to be able to capture this in a way that you don't have things that are clipped. So you end up having to clone out fish or compose it at specific intervals that kind of give you the best chance of having nothing clipping and nothing overlapping. Next image.
Okay. Oh, forgive me. The title of the last image was A Column of Light. Forgot to do that. Okay, next one. This title of this one is A Walk Amongst the Trees.
This one's really interesting when you start looking at it up close. But I think the thing that makes this one tough in terms of photograph is that the subject is fairly dark and it's hidden in the branches. And so, there are really a couple of ways of treating it. One is if it's possible, because the foliage is probably green, sometimes you're able to brighten the green value, just like you would with infrared, or the way you would in Lightroom if you use the luminance slider and just move the green channel all the way to the right. Sometimes you can move it there. But what I'm looking for is something that's going to make the subject pop a little bit. That statue in there, I think it's interesting as is, but what the part of the statue you really see and notice is really that knee or that front leg, and the other parts of the statue just have a lot of overlap and are crowded. So, my best way to shoot this would probably be infrared.
All right. Next one, Avenue
Yes.
of Oaks.
Love the oak trees here and the way they're composed on the left side of the frame. Also, if you look, there's a great egret, I believe that is, that's there on the left side in the oak trees. It's not quite important enough to be a subject, but it is interesting that it's there. What you really wanted was that bird to be coming the other way and then just step right out perfectly in a perfect composition spot, but none of us are so lucky. So what we've got is the oak trees, the draping moss, the play of the shadows on the ground, and again, a lot of nice tonal values as you go from the very dark areas of those tree trunks up into the lighter areas of the shadows on the ground. I probably would suggest trying to crop off some of the bottom of it, just to because I don't think that bottom part really adds value. I think this is much stronger image if you crop off about maybe a quarter of the bottom of the frame.
Okay. Next one is Curiosity.
Another aquarium shot. And I think one of the things that always attracts me at the Georgia Aquarium is that big, huge tank, and all the kids that walk up right to the edge of it and are looking at everything coming by. There are a couple of tanks that are like that there, but that's the one that comes to mind for me. And here I like just the real soft lighting on the side of the face, on the face of the little boy in the foreground on the right-hand side. You see him kind of looking, and there's just enough light coming off that it's lighting his face. Also, the child on the bottom left is interesting. The thing that I think I might like to see more is maybe a different perspective. It feels like you're looking down on the kids. And what might be interesting is to be at eye level of the kids, maybe shooting up, seeing something else in the background, or seeing their face from a slightly different angle.
All right. Next one
Next,
is Days Long Gone.
I guess these are corn husk dolls. It's an interesting arrangement of the dolls in the context. I would assume they're either reproductions or maybe they are really old. But anyway, they're very interesting. A lot of detail there, a lot of good texture, and one of the things I like about this image is the way the image captured all those textures, all those details. One suggestion would be to give a little bit more space around the edges. It feels like all three of the dolls are kind of crowded at the edges of the frame, on the left side, at the bottom of the frame, and on the right edge, with little bits clipped off. And so I'd be looking to do this by giving them a little bit more space, even if you had to add canvas or add space to the image.
All right. Next one is Low.
Yeah, this is a nice stream scene. And one of the things I look for in images is especially water images is a series of layers. And here you've got layers and textures, just layers and textures, layers and textures, layers and textures all the way through it. Nice depth of field, nice slow shutter speed, so you see the movement of the water. And then it lends itself well to black and white because your eye is attracted to the middle of that diagonal that goes up at that ripple that goes all the way through it. So nice image here.
Okay, next one is going the distance.
Now, I don't remember what bird this is. Somebody probably knows and can speak up, but skua, albatross, or I just don't know. It's not from around here. I can tell you that. Um, anyway, it's an unusual bird taken from someplace far away. Like the capture with the horizontal view with the wings outstretched and the especially that bright face on the bird with the tuberous nose or bill that's at the top of it. I think that's really interesting. It's something that's very unusual. Would love to see a little bit more separation between the bird and the background. It kind of gets lost in the black and white version against that background. If it's possible to lighten the background and give a little more pop to the bird, I think that would help the image. Also, sometimes you can change the angle. I'm sure that it was not practical to change the angle on this, but if you can get down a little lower or something like that, sometimes that's helpful to blur the background.
All
Next.
right, the next one is Lisbon Street car.
Okay, nice photo of a streetcar. Obviously, it's a travel photo, so it's in a different area and kind of something that's unusual. I like the curve here of the tracks and the road. Streetcars nicely positioned in the foreground. You can see and have a sense of scale and context because of the people on the right and the architecture on the left-hand side. Would love to see it just a little bit sharper. That looks just a little bit on the soft side as I looked at it. So that's probably one thing that I would probably try to do. And then anything you can do to have a little bit more people or interaction or something that brings it more than just a photo of a streetcar. I think that can be helpful as well.
All right, the next one is Misty Coastal Morning.
I love the feel of this. I'm not sure where it was taken. Would assume it's on the Georgia coast. Looks like some scenes I've seen at both Fort McAllister as well as Jekyll Island, and I'm sure there are other places like this around there. Really like the moss, like the tree, like the general composition. I feel like the vignette may be a little bit heavy-handed on this. Normally, I'm looking for a vignette that has a pretty light touch. And here it's a major aspect of the left side of the image. So I feel like it's enough where it's taking away from the image rather than helping. So I'd probably look for something that's a little bit more, a little less pronounced as a vignette.
All righty, next one is Mama Told Me.
There are so many good things going on in this photo that it's funny. It's one of those images where every face or every head is telling you something different, except for the one that is probably most important. That's the rider, and you can't see his face. But the two guys standing together just above the head of the bull, the expressions on their face are just priceless as they're watching the guy out there. And then also the guy with the S on his face that's in the ring running to help out. That's again a great expression there. Even the bull has a good expression on the face of the bull there. Again, what I'd like to see is a little tighter crop, trying to emphasize and bring those in a little bit larger, making them more prominent, cutting off some on the left-hand side, coming off some at the bottom. You could even trim a little bit more off the top and the right, but just places to tighten up and really have more emphasis on what some of those expressions could be. Sometimes trying to get too much of it into the shot actually takes away. And I couldn't really find a way to isolate it more and look at just one or two or three of those expressions. But that's I'd be looking for trying to get a little tighter on faces because that's where the action is.
Okay, the next one is The Light of Time.
Love the thought that went into this one. Very, very tightly composed. nice specular highlights in the background. Froze the sand. You can see the actual individual grains of sand. You can see all the textures there. You can see the textures of the glass, the sand of the hourglass, and even the little sand bouncing up in the hourglass. Like the fact that there's a little space on the left-hand side, giving it room to breathe. So just all in all, a really nice image. Even the stuff that's cut off is very intentionally cut off, and it's used as an edge as opposed to random cutoffs. So it doesn't bother me, and is put together very artistically.
Alrighty, next one is waiting for the tide to come in.
Well, you can imagine this one's got a ways to wait for that tide to come in. You can see the big wide beach here, and you can see the boat. How I really like the leading lines of the boat, the sail, the mast, all kind of angling in the same direction. But I feel like the boat is overlapping the land a little too much and doesn't quite have enough separation there behind the boat to the ridge of trees and the things behind it. I'm not sure what other angles would work, but I think I'd try to experiment with it. The clouds are great. I like the emphasis on the sky and the beach, the composition with roughly 1/3 land, 2/3 sky. That works. But in good subject matter, I think it's an interesting beach, especially shooting it wide like this. One more thing, there does seem to be a little bit of a vignette on this, and on this image, it's got a very light touch. It's well done, doesn't bother me at all. Looks very natural.
Okay, now we go to the color category, and we will do a silent run through on those. Okay, here we go, the silent run through. Okay, now we'll go back to the first one, and then use the. Okay, the title of this is A Spider with a View. Go ahead, Eric. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm muted really nicely.
Okay.
Okay. Really like the rounded rocks here that the spider is on. Capturing the spider close kind of has changed the proportions of everything and makes the spider look quite large, especially when you see it in the context of that view in the distance. So I think it's an interesting shot, very interesting perspective. Wonder how it would have worked as a horizontal image with more of the view or more of the background in it. You can see a little bit of those trees, but would be interesting to see if more helped. Again, it's as a macro image of an insect, it's got an interesting perspective and it's nicely done.
Okay, next one, A Visitor at Night.
Another close-up image. Got a tree frog here on the side of a building or house, and real fun. We see them everywhere at certain times of the year, and like the gold eyes, the green skin of the frog, and the contrast with the dark red brick. White balance on something like this is awfully tough because it's a nighttime shot, very low light. Or at least that's the way it looks. It's nighttime or very dark. So I'd probably play around a little bit with the white balance and see if we can get a little more pop out of the frog itself. But interesting photo, and it's certainly unusual subject matter and presentation.
All right, next one is Alert Goldfinch.
Wonderful composition here with the goldfinch, sunflower, the clean background. The sunflower is very, very sharp. The backside of it looks really nice. The bird's a little bit on the soft side as I looked at it closer. So probably the one drawback is the bird is a little bit soft, and to be so prominent in the image, that's fairly important. As far as the sunflower is concerned, I mean, you can see the little fibers all on the stem of that sunflower, so it's just perfect.
All right, next one is Buck Moon.
Love this photo. The very soft evening colors of dusk with the building, the reflections, the calm water, and the moon there. Wrestle with this in terms of some of the bright aspects of this image. The moon itself seems just a shade bright for the scene, and then there's a sunset kind of, or sunlight coming back behind it. So it's I guess right at dusk, and that left hand side's a little on the dark side. I might have toned that down a little bit, but really like the composition, like the arrangement, and the balance that has. Just a very tranquil scene.
All righty, next one is Cardinal on Sunflower.
Yeah, cardinals make a really nice subject matter. And here we've got a male cardinal sitting on an old dried out sunflower head. Light's a little bit on the harsh side, and the cardinal's crown is not sticking up, which is one of the things that tends to make it more attractive. But it still doesn't take away from the fact that the posture of the bird is really neat. It's looking right toward the camera or the photographer, and it's interesting subject matter. Also like the dark shadow behind the bird. It really helps to make the foreground pop with the bird, the sunflower, and that leaf right next to the bird.
All righty, the next one is Don't Drink and Fly.
Okay, that we'll forget the title. Sometimes it's better that I not see the titles. Here we've got I guess this is a moth, not a butterfly, feeding on a flower. Flower is a little bit past its prime, but we have great color there. And then also have the moth with its proboscis sticking into the flower feeding. Is a neat capture. The thing that is probably a struggle on this one is the background. The background's really busy with a lot of contrast in it. And it's something that it's very hard to neutralize that. The way I'd try to do it in editing would be I'd try to pull out the background and just start by reducing contrast, and then trying to brighten those shadows to ease off the background a little bit so it's not quite as potent. It's just one of those things you're going to run into trying to photograph in bright light, and about the only other thing you can do is use a reflector or a flash, trying to throw some light in there from this side and be able to even things out a bit. But nice composition, good capture of wildlife in action.
All right, the next one is Eastern Tiger. I can't read the third thing. I'll say butterfly, but I can't read the
Yeah, we'll call it swallowtail and call it a day.
Thank you. That's what it is. Thank
you. But no, this looks good. It's remarkably hard to catch butterflies in flight. We see them all the time, but I know that in trying to capture them, it's always a step late. And here the swallowtail has been captured in flight, and it's perfectly spaced between those two plants, and so it's the right frame, the right time, the wings are up, and everything looks really nice. it's cropped appropriately. We have some stuff in the background that is appropriately blurred. Again, it's done well, and I don't see any issues with that. Very nice photo.
All right, the next
And
one is Hummer at Phlox, Phlox.
yes, we've got I guess it's a female or juvenile hummingbird at a phlox plant in their feeding. Definitely an action shot. You can barely see the wings there, but the bird is tack sharp. That you can look at the little feathers on the legs of the bird, and very, very sharp. The phlox plant also is very sharp. Probably the thing that would try to look for in the future will be trying to have cleaner separation behind the bird. Now, you can't always choose where the bird's going to be. What I try to do is set up for what is the clean shot or what is the clean background if I do get it. So I try to focus on maybe the right-hand side of this phlox plant where it may not come there, but if it does come there, I've got a clean background as opposed to the overlap on this one. There just wasn't space for the bird to get in there without having an overlap with phlox behind it. But great subject matter and very colorful.
Okay, the next one is light and color interplay.
Very nice photo here. Obviously, this one's not from around here, but it's really well done. Love the colors of the people, like the backgrounds, love the precision of the composition with or crop with the layers of the arch there and all the different lighting on different portions of it. So all in all, this is really nice photo. The thing I'm not sure I would call it a change, but the thing I would hope for is trying to get the two people in this photo with both walking closer to the way the one on the right is. This is probably one of those that their pace or strides were just slightly off, and even if you had 5 frames, you're going to have them each at a different pace and each stepping differently. But that's what you would hope for, is have that right leg a little straighter on the person that's on the left-hand side. Very nice photo, though.
Okay, next one is ruby-throated hummingbird.
Now, as compared to the other hummingbird photo, this one I think does a nice job with the background behind the hummingbird. Hummingbirds turn slightly toward the camera. It's still very sharp. We still have good fine detail of the bird, but a nice soft background behind it, so the subject really jumps out. Ideally, I'd probably look for the trumpet vine to be a little sharper and in focus, but I think it's pretty good, all things considered. One thing when you run into that is you might crop that a little tighter and put it a little bit more at the edge of the frame if it's going to be way out of focus like that. So you can bring in the right, bring up the bottom a little bit, and I think it might help the image and take the eye away from those blossoms. The other thing you could do would be spend some time cloning it or clone something else in its place, but I'm not sure that's worth it. I think the bird itself is done very well. Perfect position, perfect pose, very sharp, no issues.
Next one is seen both ways.
Yeah, this is fun. I think it's, as opposed to worrying about whether or not you can get both animals to turn around toward the camera, or both of them turn away, and you're just sitting there without being able to do anything. Here you've got one turned away and one turned toward you, and both horns and head are lined up almost exactly the same way. So nice juxtaposition of the two. It's an interesting shot. I'm sure that I say I'm sure. I don't think you set out to compose this at the beginning, so it's also a nice example of looking for the opportunity, seeing it, and taking the shot, because I think this is nicely done.
All right, next one is Sydney Lanier Bridge.
Looks to me like this is an infrared photo with a and it's a color infrared. And so the question is, how do you handle post-processing on it? In this case, this it looks appropriately white balanced the way it came out of the camera, but I'd love to see a little bit more done to post-processing this to do a channel swap or something like that to convert it. This one is a nice image with a lot of potential to be able to turn it into a variety of different presentations. Could have done well in either the black monochrome or the color category.
All right, the next one is Transient Elegant Design.
Love the icebergs here, and especially all the textures that are in the icebergs or chunks of ice. You can see lots and lots of detail in it. The water's all frozen. Everything's very sharp, but lots and lots of really good detail in this and good textures. Beautiful image of icebergs.
All righty, now we're gonna go, I'm just gonna flip back to the first monochrome. I do want to mention, need to congratulate Mark McElhaney on becoming a distinguished master photographer recently. That's the highest level. It's hard to do. There's only 4 of us who's ever made it. He's the 4th. I want to make sure he's put a lot of work into that. Great photographer. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you very much. I'm honored. I still don't think my photographs are good enough, but I appreciate it.
That's hard to do. I mean, it takes a boatload of blue ribbons to get that. It's a lot. It's not easy to do. Again, only 4 of us. 4 people have ever made it. Mark is now one of them. And that takes a lot of hard work and patience and skill set to achieve it. So Mark, again, congratulations. You're well deserving of it. All righty. So let's go ahead and go to the winners.
Mike, I've got a comment.
Oh, please.
Okay, so we give ribbons to 20% of the entries for each category. And that would mean that'd be a first, second, and third for both color and monochrome. And that's actually rounding up to do that because we had only 13 entries in color and 12 in monochrome. And I do know that Eric, to cover everything, came up with honorable mentions in both categories. But I wanted to just stick with just first, second, third.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl. When I go through the third, second, and first, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the honorable mention that Eric noted as a backup, just so the photographer will recognize they did a good job. So I'll do that in addition. Let's start with third place. So I'm going to scroll through. I'll stop at third place. Third place. There you go. That's Going the Distance, and that's yours truly. I took this in Antarctica on a ship. When I went on my Antarctica trip in seems like forever, 2017. And I shot the albatross, and that's what it is. And what caught my eye was the little water droplet at the end of the beak. But my only debate on this one was, I was going to include a little bit of the sky on top, give it some perspective or context. But anyway, that's what came out. So that's the shot I got.
Tough to do with the boat is moving.
Yeah, the boat's moving, so it wasn't hard. It wasn't like hard to get as compared to a bird that's flying real quickly.
You just have to go a long way to get it. That's not one you're going to see in North America or off the Georgia coast.
But
it is amazing how many miles these birds fly. It's just unbelievable when you think about it. And they're remarkable birds, and even though you can get a bird to get the right angle, the right detail, it's not easy to do. You have to get lucky. So you just have to stand on the ship and stay warm as best you can and just be patient, and you'll get a bird that's going to cooperate. So you never know. It's
Yeah,
fun.
I did a pelagic trip. It's been over 10 years ago now. Spent a week with on a research vessel off the Georgia coast and out into the Gulf Stream and up off the Carolina coast. And we were trying to document every bird that we saw. And there were days we would only see 9 or 11 birds the entire day. But it's interesting when you go to these strange places, even a cruise ship, and the birds you can see when you're out at sea.
Yeah, this ship was a former icebreaker, Russian icebreaker that we use, so it's hardly luxury, but an enormous amount of birds are following that ship. So it's a really grand opportunity if you're into bird photography. It's one of the best bird photography adventures you could ever take. Not to mention the penguins. But I still don't know if I should include a little bit of the sky on top. That's debatable. You know, gives it a little bit of depth, but that could go either way. But anyway, next one. Let's see here. Where are we going? I'm not sure. What do you think? I like that one. This is number 2. Daryl. Nice shot, Daryl. Really like this. Good composition. Go ahead, Daryl.
So Eric was correct. This is at the Georgia Aquarium, which is a feast of things to photograph. I had not been there in years and found it much improved from when it began. I was there with wife, daughter, and grandson. And I looked at this and I said, look at that. You know, these animals were just kind of slowly going by. And Eric, yes, I did think, should I clone out the ones that are clipped, that are only partially sticking into the frame? And I thought it might make it look too perfect. So I didn't. So I'm happy to get a second place.
And that's there is always room for a different opinion on judging. So I could easily go either way. So
yeah, no, I thought about it. I just elected not to do that.
Yeah,
But,
I like the fact that you didn't try. I think, you know, a lot of black and white today. The pattern is, or monochrome is, a lot of contrast. I'm glad you didn't push the contrast. You didn't want to do that. You did a good job on processing. You didn't push the contrast, which is maybe I would have done, but you made the right decision to keep that contrast leveled and softer.
Yeah.
I love the tonation. Good job, Daryl. I love it.
Incidentally, the way you do this sort of thing is you put the lens right on the glass. So you don't have any reflections or any bounce light that's coming in off the glass. And then you just have to sit there and wait for things to come by.
Also, when you go to the aquarium and shoot this, it might be a good idea to bring a glass cleaner, a little wipe, so you can wipe off any fingerprints.
That's true, but I found them to do a good job of cleaning the glass.
Anyway, very, very great shot. I really like it. Any other comments on it?
Now, one other thing I'll point out is that looking at the kind of what the tones are, the background is more mid-tones and even tones, and then all the extremes are in the subject matter. So it really draws your eye into the subject matter. The brightest parts as well as the darkest parts are in those main fish that you're really noticing, that are closest to the glass or closest to the camera.
I think that helps give it a 3D
Yeah,
aspect.
definitely.
And also, if you can see my marker, I like this little curvature here of the fish right there.
Yes.
I mean, that's what they do. But anyway, to get this shot, Daryl, you didn't just go up there and shoot. You had to have a little patience. So anyway, like it. Okay, next one. Now we go to the first place. I wonder where that is. Let's see. That's first place, and that's yours truly again. The Light of Time.
Mike, how'd you do it? And how'd you get that sand in jumping out at you?
How about 4 months of work? When we had that time theme, the theme was time, I had this idea, I could just not get it. And so, you know, this was a tough one. I had an idea what I wanted, and then to get wrong, the lighting would be wrong. And then another trick would be I'd have to handle the sand thing with gloves on, so I wouldn't heat up, because you heat it up with your hands at all, the sand begins to stick to the top of the glass. It sticks to the glass, and you don't want that. So when I'd shoot it, I'd have to shoot it really quickly because all of a sudden that sand would begin to stick to the upper part, you know what I mean? And so it took forever. But after months and months of, I didn't pull my hair out, that's good. I finally got it. And so behind there are kind of Christmas lights. And so I did is I put a black felt, in my little place, I took a black velvet cloth I bought a while back, big one. And I put it in the background and I put the lights in on top of that. And getting the lights just right took forever. You know, I'd shoot it, oh, I don't like that, so I had to shoot again, and then the sand wouldn't be the right height, and it ran too far. I had to stop and do it all over again. So anyway, that's how I did that. And then of course I had the time thing on a little table very close to the camera, but far away from the lights. So I used a zoom lens. I adjusted the zoom lens to get that nice circular effect you get with a zoom lens. Shot at 1/1000th of a second. And then I opened up at f4, at 5.6, and then I adjusted the ISO to get the right exposure. So that's pretty much how I did it, but it took forever. So
it's really nicely done. That's this image just jumped out, just kind of all the things, both in terms of general aesthetics, the composition of it, but also the detail of that sand. That is really nice. And
yeah,
no fingerprints, no dust on the glass.
That's the thing. I mean, it doesn't take long before the party's over, so you don't have time to shoot it. You sit there, you wait for it to do its thing, and then you don't get the little hump at the bottom, so you have to start all over. So Jim Zuckerman, I contacted him recently. I canceled my trip on one of his photo shops, and I said, send him these still lifes. And Jim said, good job in still lifes. He said, he used to do still lifes. He says, I just can't do it anymore. It drives me nuts. And I said, you're right, it drives me nuts. But anyway, it's fun, but it's not easy to do. Still life is, for me, still life's the most difficult kind of photography for me because you have complete control, but also that means you have to create everything. You don't have, it's not walking out just getting the shot and get lucky. This is, you got to set this thing up. And so I understood Jim's perspective very readily on that. So this took forever. So, but anyway, I finally got it done, even though it was months after the theme of time was over. So, but anyway, thank you very much. Now let's go to color. The winners of the color. I know that spider's scary to me, but anyway, let's go to, oh, I want to mention the honorable mention from the black and white. Forgive me. I think I should note it. The one there you go. That got Steve's attention. I mean, Eric's attention too. That's by Steve Director. So that was one that Eric really appreciated. So I'd bring that up. So let's go ahead and go to color. And we'll go to third place. Yeah, third place. Let's see here. Which one is it? Third place goes to this little guy. Any comments? Oh, by the way, it's by Mr. Steve Director. I don't think he's here, but if he is. But anyway, by Steve Director. So there you go.
Yeah, again, this one just stood out because the hummingbird was so perfect and that background behind it was really good. So
yeah, I have to say I'm the creator of the other hummingbird picture. And what occurred was I was standing on my carport unpacking some camera gear from going to photograph other things. And I turned around and there was the hummingbird and click, that was it. And so if I had set it up, you're absolutely right in terms of the background. That Steve's background here is just perfect. And he's got the bird all in there. The eye is very sharp.
Yeah.
I agreed with you totally on this one that I would crop up from the right and up from the bottom. And I think that would be just fine. But
go ahead.
I enjoyed your critique of mine.
The wings are striking. That's what gets me. They're just sharp. Yeah. The wings.
No, he's also using a higher shutter speed, I think, than I was.
Yes.
And this is another thing with some hummingbirds. Do you want it frozen in time? Or do you want some semblance of movement in the wings to indicate that it's flying? Again, it's personal preference sort of thing. But I probably should have kicked up the shutter speed.
Yeah, this one, I mean, I'm not gonna claim to be an expert at shooting hummingbirds, but generally, you optimally, like Daryl said, it's hard to shoot when you see the hummingbird out there all of a sudden. Usually, you have it on a tripod, and you're all set up waiting for a hummingbird because you know where they're going to be there eventually, and pre-focus on the foreground so it's sharp. So you don't have to have a blurred foreground. That's what you don't want. I don't think that could be a problem. So
I
pre-focus.
don't know what kind of hummingbird this is.
It's
I do
almost
not-
certainly a ruby-throated.
You
if
think
it's-
so?
Yeah, if it's in the
But the
southeast,
tail
it's,
colors.
if it's in the southeast, it's a
It's not. I think it's Massachusetts.
maybe not then.
That's where he is in the summer.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think it's really.
still likely to be a ruby-throated.
Well, they have a wide
Female or juvenile.
distribution.
But to make sure that foreground is sharp, which is optimal, you pre-focus,
Yeah.
and then if you look, the bird will be sharp. So just make sure that foreground is sharpened, so you don't have to worry about that. That's going to make this photograph, in my view, stronger. But that the bird is tack sharp, and that's most important. So anyway, good shot. I love it. Really, I just love those wings. But anyway, the next one goes to second place, and that's going to be. Let's see where we are here. Which one gets second? There he is. Steve Director's at. He's shooting the animals and the wildlife. But anyway, Steve Director again. Go ahead. Any comments?
Yeah, I think the thing about this one is that it was just so perfectly positioned. Again, with the wings perfectly positioned, to the butterfly very sharp, and also the fact that it was perfectly positioned between those little branches of flowers. I mean, I could see cropping a little tighter, but it was really just perfect in terms of positioning.
Yeah, that is a tough shot to get. And again, the floor is sharp, and that helps it. That's important, but the floor just happened to coincide distance from the lens to the butterfly. But still, I agree, cropping it would have been a stronger shot, but this is a great shot. It's not easy to get.
I had the same view about the cropping.
Yeah, because the interest, you always ask yourself, you're trying to decide the composition, ask yourself, why are you shooting this shot? What's your target? That's your target. Make sure you crop it so in a way that attracts the eye to the main subject without any other distractions. Even those other distractions, quote unquote, are pretty. Ask yourself, what are you taking? And that's something that took me only 10 years, 15 years to learn, but I finally learned it that way. So
incidentally, knowing Steve, because we use some of the same hardware, this is probably taken with the Nikon Z8. And for those who aren't familiar with the contemporary cameras, and by that I mean cameras that have come out in the last 5 years, they use artificial intelligence, specifically machine learning. They have been trained to recognize certain kinds of objects. And in the Z8, you can set it on motorcycle, automobile, plane, bird. There isn't a butterfly mode, but I suspect this was bird mode. And what happens, you put a continuous focus, the thing locks on, and you just push the button. I was out at PDK at the airport the other day with grandson again, and I was using an Olympus OM1, and I just dialed in plane, and I just pointed it. If the plane was in the frame, it drew a rectangle around the plane, focused on it, and I just had to push the button. And
there's
that's
also
what's happening out there.
Also a feature called pre-release capture.
Oh, yes.
And what it will do is it will capture up to 1 second's worth of images at whatever the frame rate is you specify, 30 or 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
In my testing with that, you wait literally until you see the butterfly take off from one flower on its way to the next one, and then you press the shutter, and it's got every photo, every frame is that butter taking off on its way to the next one. So it's getting easier.
Bird is sitting on a branch, and you think this bird is getting ready to fly off. You know, you look for certain cues, like the bird poops. That's one.
That's right.
Another cue
Africa
is they start leaning forwards a little bit. Well, you just hold down the shutter, and it's recording, and it takes off. and after it's taken off, you let go of the shutter. And what it does, it saves everything up to a half second, maybe even a second now.
It'll do a full second, but a half is usually plenty.
Of everything was happening before you let go of the shutter. And then you just go in and pick out the picture you want.
Does it detect you
It's
pooping?
really,
The bird pooping?
It does not refocus retroactively, so you still have to be guessing right on the direction it's moving, position, that kind of thing. But when I was testing it up at Gibbs Gardens last year, I was able to photograph every single hummingbird.
really.
And I mean, it was like, oh, this is boring. This has gotten too easy now. Some of them were still discards. Some of them were discards because it would turn the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so you're discarding the whole sequence. But you could see it coming to a flower. If it came to the flower, you simply press the button. You had the shots of it approaching and the shots of it leaving.
So, and it's rather like what they used to do with cars. You remember GM would bring out all the latest abilities in the Cadillac. And then if you wait a few years, it would make its way down to the Chevrolet. And the same thing is happening with the cameras. The ones in the high-end expensive cameras, those abilities are now starting to show up in the mid-range cross cameras.
Yeah, it's available on my Z6 III and my Z8. It's also available on the Z9.
Z6 III. Yep.
And
all right.
I think some others have that as well. It's not just Nikon that has it.
Canon's got it.
Yeah.
Fuji's got it.
Yeah.
OM's got it. Yeah. Okay.
Getting back to still life, the camera doesn't help.
That's right.
You're photographer, you're stripped of all those advantages,
but if you're into wildlife, it's these things are
like still life makes it still life. Cameras just don't help you with that. You have to start from scratch. That just makes it frustrating, but very rewarding. But anyway, let's go to number one, the first the blue ribbon winner, and that goes to yours truly again, light and color interplay.
Now, was it Morocco? I've seen this thing before.
It's in the exhibition.
Maybe it was in monochrome.
No, it's in the exhibition. You've seen it before, but
Tunisia, Morocco,
India.
India.
Yeah, this was taken in India on film with I think an N70 Nikon. Yeah, on film. And so Eric. Eric, this is a one-shot deal because I didn't have the money to blow through film. So all those shots on film were almost 95% of them were one shot. You're done. Forget it. And then
I remember.
So you hope it turns out because you don't get to see it on film, obviously, on a screen because it doesn't work that way. So anyway,
even the white balance on this is really beautiful. That shadow back behind them is just enough, just the right color. So
yeah, I took
the chrome.
This was Fuji Chrome. This was Fuji Chrome, probably 100 probably. Yeah, Fuji Chrome 100. Could have been Velvia 50. I don't remember. But anyway, I saw the arch. I loved it, and I saw a cat walk across and whatever. And I'll just wait and see if I get lucky. And then I was there for about 20-30 minutes, and finally I got this shot because the light was wonderful. And after I took it, I had a big adrenaline rush. You guys know how that feels when you get a shot like that. And I knew it came out good, and it did. This is one of my favorites. I've always loved this shot, the colors, everything. And it was a real adrenaline rush. My dopamine was at high levels when I got it. It's a good feeling.